So today I'm going to talk about 5 types of owner finance deals, and I'm going to try to give actually real life examples of each one because I love real estate wholesaling, and I also love creative deals. I have made a lot of money with owner financing, probably in the millions, and so I'm going to share some of these strategies with you because you always have to have your eyes open. Man, there is a lot of money and opportunity that other investors do not see. And a lot of these require little to no money down. So I think you can enjoy today's show. But before I jump into the details, if you have not been over to nextlevelwholesaling.com and you have not taken the Next Level Wholesaling assessment, what are you waiting for? This is the very tool that actually got me from working by myself as a solopreneur, and I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, to all of a sudden doing 6-figure months on the regular with a small team. And I went from working 50 hours a week down to 3 to 4 in my real estate wholesaling business. This is not a myth. It is not an imaginary tale. This is something that I actually did. And I have trained hundreds of investors to go from a solopreneur to running a business that operates a high profit margin and without them on the day-to-day basis. So go to nextlevelwholesaling.com and take that assessment. All right, so let's jump into the 5 types of owner finance deals. Now, there are other types of owner finance deals out there, but I'm gonna just talk about 5 because I don't want to confuse you too much. Number 1 is the straight owner financing. Let me tell you a story. So I got a call from a guy who had sold us a wholesale deal a few years back, and he had called us and said, "Oh, I really like that you guys bought my house for cash, but I really want more for this other house. It's nicer, it's a better location, and I want XYZ." And he wanted a basically, about 10% below market value. And so I met with him and with our acquisition specialist, and basically because he wanted such a high price, we couldn't wholesale it. I said, "Okay, Mark, how about this?" And I think at the time I had paid like $580 for the house. He wanted $580,000. So I said, "Mark," and I know that sounds like a lot. This is California, but I said, "Mark, what if we could give you your $580? I'll give you $20,000 down, and I will pay you $2,000 a month for the house until the house is paid off in full." And Mark thought about it for a second, and he said yes. Okay, so I bought the house again for $580. I put down $20,000, and I paid Mark $2,000 a month until the house was paid off in full. Okay, now if you are doing the math in your head, that's about $224,000 a year in print. You might be thinking, "Todd, what is the interest?" There was no interest, right? So I was able to, again, put $20K down, $2,000 a month, because it was 0% interest, basically paid monthly. And so if you do the math there, it took about, right, if you were to schedule out, it would take about 20 years to pay that off. But the cool thing about that is that the principal was just going down so much, right, every single month. And so we rented that house out for a few years. The balance went down tremendously. The house went up in value. And basically, we wound up making several $100,000 on that one deal. I didn't have my credit checked. I didn't have to put more than $20,000 down. We got the deal done in just a few days. We stuck a tenant in there, and all was hunky-dory. Now, you might say, "Todd, why would somebody do this?" Look, I don't know. But Mark told me he was not good at money. He didn't want to pay a real estate commission. He liked us. It was comfort. And so every single month, we actually put $2,000 into his MoneyGram account. So he didn't have a bank account. So he that was true. He wasn't great with money. And so we just direct deposit that money every single month. Now, here's the cool thing. You want to hear something, a crazy story, is later on, I called up Mark, and after I paid him off, I said, "Hey, can I borrow 100 grand? And he said yes. And he lent that money to me at 4.5%. That was pretty cool, which I was stoked to have. So that is the power of owner financing. Not only can you buy properties, but you can also get loans from people who have lent you money. All right, so loans from people who you bought properties from, excuse me. Let's talk about, by the way, if you have any questions on this, you can leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear about this. If you're totally confused, that's fine. Hit me up at Todd Toback at Instagram, but just ask the details down in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, you can also email me. Let's talk about the sub 2 financing deal. So this one is the straight sub 2. This one was back in 2000, I think it was 8 or 9. So that would put us maybe like, 15 years ago. And this guy called me. His name was Ed, and he was underwater on his property. And so he came to me and he says, hey, I owe 480 on this place, or 380. I don't know what it was, but I remember it was about 100K upside down. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I looked at the interest rate. It was pretty good. Payment was like $2,300 a month. And I said, I'll just take over the payments for you. So he said, great. He didn't want to make the payments anymore. And I just took over a $100,000 property upside down, took over the payments of like $2,300 a month. There may have been a loan modification in there. If you're wondering, hey, Todd, that sounds kind of low for that price of house. I think there was. That was the cool thing during the housing crisis. And I went and I sold that property on owner financing to somebody else, except I got a big fat down payment, and I also sold it at a 7.5% interest rate. And my interest rate was like 3 or 4. It was very, very, very low. Now, I could have just rented that property, but I decided to become the bank and create a spread in the interest rate and also make some money on the down payment. So I got paid up front, and I got paid every single month as he paid the loan, which was really, really great. I also used a company called noteservicing.com, and they handled all that note stuff, which was just absolutely awesome. So that was a straight sub 2. Now, you may be thinking, Todd, oh my gosh, I've heard of the due on sale clause and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to talk about that today. That's really a non-issue. I've never had it happen to me or any one of my students who listen to podcasts who have paid the loans on time. So if you do these, for sure, talk to your attorney. But I have had 0 problems with them. It has all the benefits of buying a property with a loan, but none of the drawbacks, no credit checks or no personal liability. And so I have really, really, really enjoyed doing these deals. I've made a lot of money. They're not for everybody, but hey, it's an option. All right, let's talk about the sub 2 hybrid. Now, this one was really, really, really cool. And this one was a lady named June had called me, basically through a real estate agent who I had a relationship with. This house was in Spring Valley, California, and she owed approximately $390 on this house. It was in a so-so area, and the place was worth approximately $450, $460, right? And she wanted every bit of that $450 or $460, but she owed $390. So here's what I said. She had a loan from Bank of America there. I said, let me take over your $390 loan. Okay, let me take over. It may have been $380. I said, let me take over the $380 loan. And I will take over that. I will take over the payments. And then I owe you, right, because you want $450 for the place, I owe you $70,000. Right, so I'm going to give you your price. I'm also going to pay the real estate commission here to the agent who brought me the deal, so I'll pay that out of my pocket. And so what I did at that point was she took back a note, right? Owner finance, no payments, okay, no interest for 7 years. Okay, no payments, no interest for 7 years. Now you're thinking, Todd, why would she do this? Well, she had a family member living in the property. It was her son, and he was kind of bullying her. He wasn't paying rent. He was telling her he wasn't going to move out. He wasn't being very kind to his mom, and she wanted to stick it to him. So she sold it to me for a little to no money down. And when I took over, she had a ball of a time telling her son that he had to move out. So I held that property, and it went up in value, and the loan balance went down because I continued to make that loan payment from the Bank of America. Bank of America never knew who I was. They got a check every single month. And so we paid down that loan, it appreciated, and that one, market went up, and I also made several $100,000 on that deal. The only money that I had out of pocket was I actually paid the real estate agent who brought me the deal. I think I paid her a 3 or 4% commission upfront out of my own pocket, and that turned out to be a very, very, very good deal for me, which I was very happy about. So that is the sub 2 hybrid. So you'll see it's the subject to, and it's also the owner financing combined. All right, now I'm going to take you back to actually where I got one of my first starts in real estate, and that is the lease option. Now, the lease option is something where you actually don't take title. It is actually the gateway drug because a lot more sellers will say yes to this than a sub 2. And so a lot of times if a seller has a house on the market, it's not necessarily selling. You can offer to lease the property from them, give them monthly payments, and then get the option to buy. You can also do this if you want to try a property before you buy. An option is the right to buy something, not the obligation. I'll say that again. An option is the right to buy something, not the obligation. So there was a house in La Mesa, California, on a little neighborhood called Mount Helix, and Scott had this property. It was worth about $1.4 million, and it was in a good location, but it had a little bit of highway noise. And so it turned off a lot of buyers because of that highway noise. So I went to Scott and I said, Scott, let me do this. You can't sell the property. You got these mortgage payments. This place is sitting vacant. Let me lease this property from you for $4,000 a month. I need 90 days with no payments, and I'll buy it from you for $1.2 million. And so Scott says, well, that's all good. I'll do that deal, but I want you to give me $100,000 up front. And I'm like, I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing that for a property I don't own. But I'll tell you what, for everything that I sell the property above, right, $1.2 million, I will split with you 50-50, right? And I think, actually, no, I'm sorry. It was 1.1. So we agreed on a price of 1.1, and I said everything above 1.1, we will split 50-50. So I got control of that property, and I advertised it as a rent to own. Not only did I get control of it on rent to own, but I decided to sell it on a rent to own. And so they call this a sandwich lease option. And so I went and I found a buyer, a tenant buyer, who's going to lease this with an option to buy, just like I bought it, for $4,500 a month, and I had $4,000. And they gave me that money. I had no payments to Scott for the first 3 months. So I made $12,000. Actually, I made about 13.5 those first 3 months in cash flow, which was awesome. And then during that time, we tried to get that buyer qualified for a loan to buy the house from us for approximately $250,000 more than we paid for it. Okay. Long story short, we got into escrow, we got the loan, and we wound up making about $150,000 spread on that property. The buyer did get qualified. They bought the property, $150, and me and Scott split that. So the $150, I got $75, he got $75. Plus, I made my $13.5 in cash flow. So that was a very, very, very good day. I had no money out of pocket. I had no personal liability. And that worked out very, very well. And I controlled $1 million property pretty much with a contract. And that was awesome. Okay. Let me tell you about one more. And this is a way of owner financing. Sometimes you can get an option to buy a property. Now, this works very much like a purchase contract. There was a house over in Ocean Beach, California, and the seller for the property, he wanted about $1.4 for the property, and it wasn't moving, and I got the right to purchase it at I think it was $1.2 million for the property. But the one thing I noticed was that the house is really cluttered, the landscaping wasn't all there, and it just needed a little bit of curb appeal. And so I got a 90-day option to buy the place for 1.2. He was asking 1.4. He gave it to me. I mowed the grass, we painted the outside, we painted the fence, we got rid of some trash. I don't know, I probably put like $3,500 into the place, and I wound up selling that place, okay, you ready for this? For approximately $75,000 more than I had under contract for. So again, he wanted 1.4, I locked it up for 1.2, I wound up selling it for 1.275 after putting about $3,500, $4,500 into just cleaning the place up and increasing the curb appeal. That was just a straight option. I didn't have to lease it, didn't have to own it, he didn't have to give me the title. He just gave me the right, the 90-day right to buy it for 1.2. Now you're thinking, Todd, why would he do this? Because he wanted the property sold. He knew that I was hungry, that I wanted to move the property. He knew that I was going to flip it for more. Every single person who I entered into these transactions with knew what I was up to, right? They didn't know exactly how I was going to exit the property, but they knew I was going to resell to make a profit. And so it's not this like arm wrestling match of me trying to pretend like I'm a buyer, excuse me, a owner occupant. Big no-no. Always let them know you're an investor. Much easier that way. So there's the straight owner finance, where the owner finance is pretty much the whole thing, and like the acts like the bank. Down payment, there might be a down payment, there might not. There's the straight sub two, where you just take over a loan and the seller doesn't carry anything with no liability. There's the sub two hybrid, where you take over loan sub two and the seller carries a balance. There's the lease option, where you have the lease, control the property, and the right to buy. There's also the straight option, where you just have the right to buy and there is no lease. So the next time you're out there, you see a good looking property that doesn't need a lot of work, right? That's where these work. They work on these properties that aren't moving, that are really, really good looking, that you could flip some of these terms to an owner occupant. So if you want to grow your business, don't forget to head out to nextlevelwholesaling.com. You want to build a team, go to nextlevelwholesaling.com. You want to do big, fat, juicy deals, check out nextlevelwholesaling.com, and I will talk to you on the next episode.